The bell tower. There was an old school at the edge of town that everyone avoided after dark. St. Michael's Academy had a reputation not just for its eerie, gothic architecture, but for the dark history that clung to it like a shadow. No one could forget what happened in the bell tower. Decades ago, a student named Lily went missing. She was a quiet girl, always sitting alone at the back of the classroom. Some said she was strange, others said she had secrets. The teachers dismissed her disappearance as a runaway case. But the students knew better. The bell tower hadn't rung in years, ever since the rope snapped in the middle of an assembly, leaving it unusable. It stood above the school like a silent sentinel, watching, waiting. And there was a rumor that if you listened carefully late at night, you could hear the faint ringing of the old bell, and the whispers of Lily. One night, a group of curious students, Emma, Josh, and Claire, decided to investigate. It was supposed to be a dare, a way to prove their bravery, to show everyone that the stories were just that, stories. They slipped into the school after dark, their footsteps echoing down the empty halls. The moonlight filtered through the cracked windows, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. As they approached the bell tower, the air grew colder, unnaturally so. Emma shivered but pressed on. "Are you sure about this?" Claire whispered, her voice trembling. "Come on, it's just a tower. There's nothing up there." Josh scoffed, though his voice wavered too. They climbed the narrow spiral staircase, the steps creaking beneath their weight. The higher they went, the more oppressive the air became, thick with dust and something else, something heavy, like an unseen presence watching them. When they reached the top, they found the room empty except for the ancient bell, which hung silently from the ceiling. The rope was gone, the walls were cracked, and a large window faced out into the darkened sky. But something wasn't right. The air hummed with tension, and an overwhelming sense of dread crept into their chests. Suddenly, the bell rang. A single, deafening toll reverberated through the tower. The sound was so loud it shook the floor beneath them, and yet, The bell hadn't moved. What the hell was that? Josh shouted, his voice barely audible over the echo. Emma stepped forward, her heart pounding. We need to go. Now. As they turned to leave, the door to the staircase slammed shut. They rushed to it, pulling and banging, but it wouldn't budge. Then they heard it a soft, barely audible whisper. Lily. The voice seemed to come from the walls themselves, from the very stones of the tower. It echoed around them, growing louder, more insistent. Help me. Emma backed away from the door, her eyes wide with terror. What is that? Josh and Claire stood frozen, staring at the floor where something began to form a pool of dark liquid, seeping through the cracks. It looked like ink at first, but then it grew thicker, more viscous. Blood. The bell rang again, louder this time, and with it came a figure pale, translucent, and dripping with water. Lily. Her long hair clung to her face, and her eyes, hollow and empty, locked onto them. You can't leave, she whispered, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. The room grew colder still, and the students felt their limbs stiffen as though frozen in place. Claire screamed, but no sound came out. The air around them grew thick, suffocating, as Lily glided closer, her hand outstretched. I never left, she whispered, her voice a hoarse rasp. Now, you'll stay too. With a final, ear-splitting toll, the bell rang once more. The room plunged into darkness, and the sound of their terrified breaths was swallowed by the silence. The next morning, the janitor found the bell tower empty except for 3 backpacks, neatly lined against the wall. The students of St. Michael's Academy never spoke of the bell tower again. But sometimes, late at night, if the wind was just right, you could hear the faint ringing of the old bell. And if you listened closely, you might even hear the whispers of the lost souls trapped within, calling out for help. But no one ever went up there to answer.